welcome back to my channel, Thrive, Don't Survive. We have a very special person here from Australia. Terriane, is that how you spell that? How you pronounce that?
That is how you say it. That is how you say it. Perfect.
And there you go. So I'm gonna ask you to introduce yourself and yeah, tell us what time is it there as well, because like we're like 12 hours apart or something like that.
Yes, it is Thursday, so I'm always a day ahead. So if you ever want to know what's happening in the future, then speak to an Aussie or a Kiwi because we're always ahead of you. So it's Thursday, 7 o'clock in the morning for me here.
That's
So I'm
hilarious.
just yeah. Well, thanks for having me on the show, Vero. It's an honor to be here. One of the things that I work with is I've been in the personal development and spiritual growth industry now for over, I almost don't like saying this, 25 years, because it kind of puts a thing on how old I am now. But for a very long time, right now, what I'm working with is I'm working with entrepreneurs in terms of helping them achieve success using an athlete's mindset. So it's about bringing, you can say I've been an elite athlete for most of my life, and one of the things I recognized was how to pull, when it comes to my sports and my training and things like that, there's nothing that I do not do. There's never any excuses and I never miss anything. And when I was working with some of my clients, they were like, oh, that stuff that you do with your sports, how do you do that in business? So what I actually created was a few programs and tools in that bring my sporting disciplines and mentality into the business and life and workspace and how to bring those two together. So that's kind of
Mhm.
my latest little creations that I'm working with entrepreneurs on how to bring that out of people and achieve the same sort of success that they often can do easily with sports in their business and life.
I love that. That's amazing. And that's so unique. And what was the sport that you were doing? Like, what kind of athlete are you?
So I've represented both New Zealand and Australia in three different codes over the years. So I was actually an aerobics champion way back when. I
Wow.
was also went to the Worlds for water ski, speed skiing. So not mainstream sports, a bit different and a bit crazy. And probably my last sport of the last 15 years is I do, now depending on where you live in the world, waka ama, which is the New Zealand version, or outrigger canoe paddling. So for your US audience, if you think of Hawaii, when you go and visit Hawaii and you have a holiday in Hawaii and you see those canoes with the bits out the side and you see people
Hmm.
paddling, that's the sport that I've been doing for the last 15 years. We just had our nationals a couple of months ago, our national competitions here in Australia. And I'm going to let everybody know my age. At 52 years old, I am the fastest woman over 10Ks in Australia.
Oh my
So
God.
even racing against open ladies and, 19, 20, 25-year-olds, I got, from nationals, I got 2 gold, 1 bronze, and a silver medal. So when it comes to achieving success in sports, I know what it takes.
Amazing. That's such an inspiring story and an inspiring place to be. Wow. Like, that's like,
Yeah.
it makes me almost emotional when I hear you say that. It's like, wow,
So,
you're so good. And so what are some of the tools that you choose to bring from the sports and the discipline of being an athlete to your coaching business right now?
well, I'll tell you one thing that was probably a big revelation for me. So, sports to me is I'm kind of unconsciously competent at it. I don't think about it when it comes to training. I don't think about whether or not I'm going to do it or not going to do it. It's just if it's on the plan, it gets done. Period. So there's no resistances or anything like that. And one of the things that I looked at, having been in this industry for a long time, and particularly about 5 years ago, my husband's also he works one-on-one with a lot of people in the coaching industry, is that I'd been teaching people. So I used to teach from the platform. So I used to teach a lot of programs from the stage, and I've traveled internationally all around the world doing this. And I used to teach a lot of NLP and all about limiting decisions and changing your belief systems and all those sorts of things. And one of the things that I came to realize about 5 years ago now was I was doing it all wrong. And if anything, a lot of the techniques that we were taught or that I was taught as I was coming through this journey really reinforce the negative feelings about yourself. And I always remember, in fact, I remember going to a guy actually in the States. Now, where was he? Texas, I think it was. And I
Okay.
came over for a marketing workshop. And one of the things he said to me, this was back in 2000, I still know the date because it really stuck with me. It's kind of like a, sand in your shoe that's just really gritty and annoying and you can't quite feel it. It has stuck with me. It stuck with me for the longest time. And one of the things he said to me was, I love personal development people because they're always the ones that are wrong. They're always at fault and it's always their fault.
What?
And it was like a little pebble in my shoe. And I was like, that's really interesting. But as I, when we had this, kind of like had this revelation moment as we were doing things, we went, oh my God, we've been doing these things all wrong. It suddenly made sense to me what he was doing. Because if you think about a lot of personal development and the theories in that, it's always like, okay, this happens. Okay, so what's the reflection on me? What do I need to take from this? Where have I, I'm the one who's
Right.
creating all of this,
The
so
blame.
I'm the one who's at fault. And so we
Right.
take a lot of blame. I'm doing very broad, I'm not saying all personal development is wrong. Absolutely not saying that at all. There's some really good stuff out there. But what happens is we take that as our fault and we blame ourselves. And after
Mhm.
being in the industry for a really long time and working with clients for a really long time, I kind of looked back and I went, do you know what? They're actually going in a downward spiral on how they're looking at themselves. And so that's when I kind of stopped and I looked at, well, what do I do with my sport? There's never any blame when it comes to me with my sports. All there is a result. That's it. There's
Okay.
no emotions attached with it. And so that's one of the things that I decided to look at. And I went, okay, so personal development and the way that a lot of personal development programs, we look at problems that we want to solve.
Right.
And instead of looking at problems to solve, what happens is, so if you think about it, when you have a problem, depending on the intensity of the problem, you'll take action to solve that problem. Now, the
Right.
more action you take to solve that problem, the less intensity there is of the problem. And the less intensity is, the less action you take. It doesn't actually solve the problem.
Okay.
See what I
So what would solve the problem?
mean? So the key difference was when I looked at what I did differently in my sporting career versus what I was doing in my business career, was in my sporting career, there's just a result I want to create. That's
Okay.
it. And I've never created it before. I've never done it before. Like, at 52 years old, a national competition. I'm racing in a six-man canoe. I'm racing on my single canoe. I'm racing, and the conditions are always different because we race out in the ocean. So you
Right.
never know what the conditions are going to be like. You never know who's going to be turning up from around Australia to race against. So you have all these unknowns and variables. So you never know. So the only thing that I know when I'm doing that is what my end result is. That's what I want to create. I want to
Okay.
create, and I'll share this story with you. So I want to create standing on the podium. Now, for my single race, for the 10K race, I set a clear intention about what I wanted to happen the next day. I wanted to stay safe. I wanted to race the best that I could possibly race. And I had top five. And that's what it came out to me, was top five. Now I'm going to try and explain this. So in this particular race, we had three waves. So there was about 160 competitors,
Okay.
all on single man canoes. So we had them split. So we had the first wave of paddlers go, then there was a 5 minute gap, then the second wave, and then a 5 minute gap, and the third wave. And I was in the second wave. And in that second wave was senior masters, so people who were 50 or over, men and women, and we were the biggest category out of that race. Now, I had said to myself that morning, I kind of intuitively said, it just came through and said top five, top five, top five. And I'm thinking, you know what, I'm not as fast as what I used to be. So top five women across the line, I'd be pretty stoked with that. And I'd like to get on the podium for my age category. So I'm
Right.
thinking in the 50 plus age category, I'd like to get on the podium. So I've got a clear result that I want. I'd like to get on the podium for my age category, and I'd like to be top five. So anyway, so we line up, and the gun goes off and we take off. And I'm just focusing on my game. That's one of the things from a sporting perspective, is you're not worrying about what anybody else is doing. You're just focusing on bringing. When I paddle, I just focus on, am I doing everything in the moment to my best of my ability? That's it. Because that's all I have. That's all anybody can bring to any moment. So if you're present in the moment and you're just going, am I bringing 100% of me to this moment? Then that's all you can ever ask from someone. So when I'm paddling, that's what I'm doing. So I'm take off and we're paddling along, and I kind of just have, about a kilometre in, so it's about 10 minutes into the race, about a K, 2 Ks into this 10K race. And I look around me and I go, oh, hang on a minute. There's 3 guys in front of me. There's a guy just to the left of me, just to the left of me and me. So there's 4 men in front of me and me. And I kind of have a quick look around and go, holy shit. Sorry, mind my language. I'm top 5. 4 men and me. I went,
Wow.
oh, and I remember thinking in my head, oh, maybe it's top 5, not top 5 women. And so as I'm going, oh my God, I'm top 5 out of the men and the women. And the interesting thing was the gentleman who was beside me, there was a guy who was racing quite close beside me. Now, he was clearly stronger than me because it was quite rough and it was windy, but I was better at catching the waves or the runners. So he'd pull ahead of me, and then I'd catch a wave and I'd pull ahead of him, and then he'd pull ahead of me. So we were having this little battle all the way down this first leg of this course. And then I think he got frustrated because he was trying so hard to muscle the canoe as opposed to being one with the water and allowing the wind and the waves to, propel you along. And that's one of the things that I really encourage people to do, is look at your environment and how can you use your environment to help propel you forward. I think he got frustrated, so he pulled behind me and went to take a different line, and then he flipped his canoe, so he ended up in the water. And I kind of went, oh, I'm now top 4. Okay, so I'm top 4 paddling along, which kind of gave me a little bit of, I suppose, excitement, going, oh, I wonder what happens. And then I looked up, and the gentleman who was probably about 30 meters in front of me flipped on his canoe.
Oh my
And kind
goodness.
of, oh, top 3. So I'm now thinking top 3 out of all the senior masters with men and women. I went, right, okay, I'm going to keep doing this now. And as we came up to the first buoy, which is about 3 kilometres into the race, you then had to turn around and come down another way. We'd caught the back of the first wave. So the paddlers that were in the first wave that had gone off, there were about 30 or 40 of those, we'd caught up to those, and we were now passing all of them. And
Wow.
so I was kind of going, oh, this is kind of cool. And so I actually passed some of my club mates who I paddle with, who were guys, who were blokes. And the funny thing about being a woman is that when you're racing against men, the masculine, oh, I don't know how to say this nicely, but all of a sudden they get really funny when they come past you, because those 3 guys flipped when I came past them on their canoes. And it's almost like they're trying so hard. They're like, no, that's a woman coming up beside me, let alone a 50-year-old woman who's coming up beside me. I'm not letting her pass. So they forget about their technique and they go harder, and they were flipping their canoes, which
Wow, that's
just makes me laugh. Like, it gives me joy. And guess what? You go faster in life when you've got joy. Well, that just makes me laugh and fills me with joy, gives me more energy. So guess what? I go faster. So, and not a single person. So in the downwind leg, there was another wave that came behind us, and I could hear their paddlers coming up, but they were on 2-man canoes. So double the power. So the only boats, or the only canoes that passed me before the finish line, were 2-man canoes from the other way. Otherwise, nobody else passed me. So I came top 3 of men and women in my category. So I won so I got gold for my age class, and also fastest time over 10Ks out of all the 3 waves of everybody. So the next person was 5 seconds behind me, who was a 19-year-old open woman. So I look at that. So that was great. Look, I've been quite excited about that race, about the results of that race, because I kind of looked at it and went, sometimes you've got to be careful what you put out for. I put out for top 5 and ended up getting top 3, and wasn't exactly specific. And we want to make sure, I kind of say to people, that's a really good example, is sometimes you don't want to be super specific on what you want, because sometimes the universe will give you way more than what you ask for.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is so
So,
interesting. And that's so cool. And how can you say an example of that in a business? Like, instead of, I don't know how you use that as a coaching tool for a business, for example. Somebody that has a coaching business.
so yeah, if you've got a coaching business and that, well, so let me back up then to this whole problem solving part of it. So what a lot of people do. So if you think about what I did from a sporting perspective, There's actually a 5-step process that I use with people in
Yeah.
terms of when they're wanting to create results in their business and life. So it doesn't matter whether it's your house, whether it's your finances, your business results, the same process applies to everything, or a sporting event, right? The first thing is you have to know what you want, and you have to be very specific of it. And I actually find that this is probably the first step is actually the step that most people aren't really clear on. So, like I've done a whole podcast on in fact, I could do a whole day seminar just on helping people figure out what it is that they want.
Right.
Because most of the time, when they're trying to decide what they want, there's one of two things, is they're figuring out what they think they can have as opposed to what they actually truly want,
Mm-hmm.
or they're creating desires or wants based around problems that they're trying to solve. And like I said before, when you're trying to solve a problem, what happens is typically the problem will often always stay in place. So it might go away for a little bit, but how many times, and this is what I'd say to your listeners, and that how many times have you had something happen and you're going, right, I don't want this in my life, but then it might be a couple months later, it might be 2 years later, that exact same problem shows up in your life again. You're like, oh, I'm doing this cycle again. Oh, I'm doing this pattern again. And it's
Right.
because you've never actually got rid of the problem. All you did was get a solution, and what I call, you went into a reactive responsive mode. So you changed the environment or the circumstances around it, but I could guarantee it probably came back and showed up in one form or another at another time, because problem solving just doesn't work. And a way to think about that is, if you think about our governments, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
our politicians, like I know you've got some big things happening with politics in the US at the moment. But I look at it and go, and the politicians come out and they tell you everything they're going to do to solve all the problems. But
Right.
what if instead that they came out with all the policies and what they're going to do to solve the problem, they said, you know what, we're going to create a community, or we're going to create a country based around these values and these things that were going to happen. What if they went into what we call the creative orientation and just purely was looking at what they wanted to create as opposed to the problems that they wanted to solve? Because if you think, but like even hunger in Ethiopia, for example, if people stopped problem solving that, we might actually have reached a resolution where that's no longer a problem. But we still have hunger in Ethiopia. Why is it? Because we're problem solving instead of looking at the creation that we want to do instead. So what would we want in Ethiopia? Well, we'd want, growing crops. We'd want communities that were self-sufficient. We'd want, like if you think about it, it's a slight tweak, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
really slight tweak on your thinking, but that slight tweak is like, the aeroplane that takes off from ground. If it's got a 1% or 2% difference in its takeoff, you end up at very different places and very different points. And so that's what we're talking about here, is looking at, so in a business context, the first thing is figuring out, what do you want to create? What's the result that you want to create? Not the problem that you want to solve, or anything else like that. It's just, what do you truly want to create? And there's a process that I actually do with some of my clients and a couple of my programs, where we actually take you through a meditation and connect with your higher purpose. So one
Mm-hmm.
of the things that I do is I like to blend spirituality with mindset. So it's a bit of both that come through. We connect you with your higher purpose and go, and get the symbols in that and go, what's truly important to you? And then we
Mm-hmm.
create results around that, because often what I find is some people say, oh, but I've got no income goals in there. It's like, okay, but let's have a look at what it did come out. It goes, oh, but you want to be this type of person and you want to create this type of business. Yep. So, well, don't you think the income's going to follow you? Oh, you don't need the income goals, because it's all in the business goal. And that's what your heart truly desires. See what I mean? So it's these fine detailed tweaks that you make that can make all the difference.
Right.
So
It's like
so
switching from the negative to the positive, like seeing it instead of
it's
seeing it as like you have the problem, then you see it like as, no, I want to create something positive.
yeah, the rule that I have for knowing whether it's it's a creation as opposed to a something that you're trying to problem solve, is that
Mhm.
you would like to see the result or the creation exist for no other reason than the existence of the creation.
Right.
That's it. So it's not trying to fix a problem. So a good example of that is, if you think of a painter. So
Hmm.
let's say somebody who creates art, beautiful artwork. they don't go in to the blank canvas and see the blank canvas and go, oh my God, I've got a problem. I've got to put paint on this canvas. They go in thinking, I want to create beautiful art. I don't know what it's going to look like. It's probably going to
Right.
be messy on the way to getting there, but I just want to create this piece of art for the sake of it existing. You see the difference in your thinking? It's a slight um, twist of how you view things. But that's
Mhm.
probably the most important thing, is coming up with things that you want to create, not because of any other reason than you want to see it exist. Like for me with my sports, my creation of I want to stand on the podium is not to fulfill any wounds I might have in myself on not feeling worthy. It was
Mhm.
because it'd be kind of cool to be, to stand in Australia and to have a third sport where I'm a national champion at. Well, that'd be kind of cool. Let's go create that. Right? There's no other reason for that apart from me wanting to do that. So for example, one of the creations that I'm working on in my business then, so for a business example, is, well, actually, no, let me share one of the ones that actually I wrote in my journal this morning, is that I want to create a home on the canal main access river. So right now, I almost feel like I want to take my camera off and show you our view. We live on a lake. Now, because I paddle, obviously, right? So because I paddle, I would like to be clear on the water, but it's got a weir in it, so it's got a concrete thing. So when I want to do my long paddles, so outrigger canoe paddling is marathon paddling. So I paddle for an hour and a half to 2.5 hours at a time and up to 20 Ks in a training session.
Mm.
And so my little lake, I kind of am like a little fish pond going round and round and round in our little lake. So I have to carry the boat up over the weir and go onto the main river so I can get out to the ocean,
Right.
and train out on the ocean. So I'm creating now here's the difference. So one of the things that I want to create is I want to create a home with main river access so that I don't have to carry my boat over the concrete weir to put it on the main river. But I want to create this house. But when I'm thinking about this house, I'm thinking about the space that I want in it. I'm thinking about the creativity spaces that I want, the workspaces. I want my son, so I've got a 15-year-old son. I want to create a space that he never leaves home. I want to create a space, so I'm thinking about all these things, but they're from the perspective of I would just love to experience that creation.
So how is it not fixing the problem of you having to go to another place to practice in a better way?
So, yep. So here's the thing. So it inspired me. So the problem inspired me to go, okay, I want to fix this problem. Or wouldn't it be nice if X, Y, Z? So that was the first thing that I went, oh, so the problem inspired me to start thinking about things that I potentially would want. Then
Okay.
what I did was I sat down and I wrote a list. So one of the exercises I get people to do is I wrote a list of everything that I want. And the more you can write down, like it's funny, I get people to do 30 things first up. My high achievers or my people who are always pushing the boundaries, I tell them to do 100. So, and because what most people do is they'll get to 20 or they'll get to 25 and they'll be like, okay, I'm done. It's like, no, no, keep going, keep going,
Mhm.
keep going. And
Mhm.
what you do is you get more specific and all the things that are problem solving actually fall out of the way. And so I might have had a house, oh, I want main river because it's fixing this problem. I want this because I don't want my son to leave home. I want this because of XYZ. So that's kind of the first things that come through in the first lot of your wants. And then as you go through, you'll find that the things that just truly matter to you, that you just love, they start coming through. And what came through for me was that it was actually the type of house, the furniture in the house, the location for, like I'm about to do a charity paddle coming up, which is 24 hours non-stop paddling with a group of people, and it's on the river. And it's kind of like, oh wow, how cool would it be if we had this home base that was on the river that people could just come past and we could celebrate them. And so can you see how it's more creations of things that I would love to create for no other reason than to be able,
Mhm.
oh, wouldn't it be cool to be able to celebrate these people as they're coming through, or pass them drinks and pass them, at 2 o'clock in the morning, give them a cheer. And so what happens is a lot of things that really truly matter to you start bubbling out from within. And that's one of the things that happened for me. So Would it be nice to solve that problem? Yes, but is that the core reason of why I want to do it? No. The creation of the house, and I'm not an architect or interior designer or anything else like that, but I've actually designed the entire house as well.
Mm.
So I even know what the creation looks like. So like an artist would paint on the wall, I've created this house. So it's actually more about the house and how it makes me feel, and uh, and also a little bit of wouldn't it be cool if that happened, so it kind of like the problem might have inspired it to start thinking about it, but
Mhm.
then it morphed into its own creation of its own, and now it's just a result, which I've said to my husband, we're doing this, we're going to have this. And so, I don't know how we're going to get it. I don't know, exactly where or anything else like that. I just know, wouldn't it be cool if this existed? This is a result I'm going to make happen. And so, am I actively looking at things? No, because I trust that the universe will send me resources, people, and opportunities when the time is right for
Yes.
me to do that. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. I have a similar process in my program as well, which is it's crazy how many people have like those limiting, I don't think it's limiting beliefs, but I mean, of course they do have limiting beliefs, but it's like they limit themselves to what like dreaming, right? It's like how
Yes.
like if you ask me, I never thought I could be ambitious and think that I want a house with a pool with I don't know, like an electric car that's nice. And I don't know, like all these things that I don't know who told us that it was not okay to dream and to be ambitious. And
Mm.
so yeah, tapping into what you actually want is something that people forgot to do. And
Yeah.
so
I'll
yeah,
tell you who told us. I'll tell you
yes,
who told us, our schooling, our education.
schooling. Ah,
Yeah. So if you think about and I say that it's not, I've just got out of the way. There's a canoe in the background there.
oh
So if
yeah, I
anyone
see
wants
it.
to know what it is, that's actually where we broke a
Yeah,
record, one of the world records in that cruise. So
nice.
that's what it looks like.
A huge kayak.
Yeah, so that's a six man, yeah. But when it comes to, if you think about our education system, so
Mm,
as little kids, like you think about little kids, we just love, like I love when you see, your under 5-year-olds and the wonder and the joy that they have about life.
mhm.
And then they go to school and they've got to behave a certain way. And they've got to do their homework or they've got to do what the class is telling them to do. So you have your daydreamers and you have, those young kids and those minds with these big imaginations, but they've got to conform to our education system.
Mhm.
And so they get told, you know what, he's a daydreamer, he needs to focus more. And so we get told when we're kids that this daydreaming and the imagination is wrong. And so
Yes.
we start believing that ability to dream and imagine what's available to us, well, that's wrong because as kids in that, you've got to focus on your maths and you've got to do this and you've got to do that and you've got to stop daydreaming, you've got to stop, his head's in the clouds. Like you think of all the things, his head's in the clouds, he just needs to focus more. Or,
Yeah.
oh, she's a daydreamer, she needs to put more effort into this. And so as little kids, we actually get taught that daydreaming and using our imagination is wrong, and that's where we stifle them. And
Very.
it's something that, if anyone's listening to this, you want to encourage your kids to just know, okay, in this environment, you need to focus, but outside of this, you need to let your imagination run wild and run free. And as adults, I think we have to show them how to do that more often. We need to be more childlike. We need to,
Yes.
practice being,
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah,
dreamers again.
befriend your inner child. That's also a big
Yeah,
one. Yeah, that like
yeah.
you care about people, what people think. You can just, believe in yourself, be confident, dance, like anything that you like. I love that. But how do you balance? Because right now it's interesting that I'm talking to you today because right now I'm going through this thing where, my parents are educators and if you weren't good in school, then it's or at least that's how I interpret it. Like I didn't have a future or value, you know what I mean? And right now, my boyfriend has a jujitsu academy, and I want to be the best, but I am
Mhm.
not. It's hard for me. I don't think I have it in me, and I want to learn, but then I'm like, I want to be this thing that I just, it's not realistic. So there's also that pattern of like the good girl, where you want to be the best in your coaching class, the best at your business, the best at, the jujitsu that, I'm not a violent person. I don't understand it, and I want to make him proud. Like I want to make my parents proud. And it's kind of like I get emotional because I
Yeah.
can't be here, and I'm here. And that's, I understand that from a coaching perspective. Being present, it's like being okay with where you are and like not wanting to be ahead or behind. You're just like okay with where you are. But how do you balance that? Um, like the perfectionism of the discipline of the sports, bringing in it in other areas, and not being like, this is like what's happening to me with the jiu-jitsu.
Um, oh, there was so much in there that we could unpack.
I
So much we could unpack on that one. Uh, oh, I'm getting told to tell you, because there's a couple of things here. One is, are you wanting to be the best for yourself, or are you wanting to be the best for everybody else? That's the first
Right.
thing.
Yes.
And that's the first thing to look at, because it's interesting when you were giving me a couple of those examples. A
Hmm.
couple of those examples were for other people 100%. That just screamed, the energy of them was like, okay, you're wanting to be the best for them in terms of showing up for them on how they might perceive you and how you want them to
Yes.
perceive you. There
Hmm.
was one of them though, I was like, oh no, that one's she wanting to be the best for herself. Rightio. That's
Hmm.
different. So there's a couple of things here. If you're trying to be the best for somebody else, it's a
Hmm.
hard slog. It's
Right.
always going to be a hard road. And the thing about that is that, and and I can link it to people who do this from a sporting mindset as well, is that when you're trying to do it for somebody else, you may reach being the best, but when
Hmm.
you get there, I can tell you now, you probably will not be satisfied being there. And that
Right.
level of fulfillment that you're looking for, it's not going to be found
Hmm.
when you're there,
Yeah.
because it's not for you, and
Hmm.
it's probably not your true pathway. See, I have a belief, and when I talk about beliefs, the way that I look at beliefs is that, you know what, they're just premises. So, I'm choosing to take this premise on because it gives me better results. That's how I kind of look at belief systems and things. And so one of the premises that I have is that when you are wanting to be, say, the best for something, it's got to be because you're looking for advancement. Now, one of the premises that I work on is any living creature, doesn't matter what it is, any living thing, they only actually have one purpose in life, and that is for growth or
Hmm.
advancement of life.
Right.
Advancement of life, advancement of expression, or growth. So, so if we keep that in mind, then to me, there are kind of almost is never any thing. There's just a creation that we complete, and then we go on to the next thing. And then we have our next creation that we want to complete, and then we go on to the next thing. And that's part of advancement, and that's part of growth. So in terms of wanting to be the best at stuff, it's funny, it's like they're going 3/4 of it is because, like in your case in particular, is because you're trying to be the best for others.
Hmm.
To see, but you can't control others. And the funny
Right.
thing is when you have true acceptance that you are the best right now in the present moment,
Hmm.
of yourself, then everybody else will see that in you as well. Does that make sense? And so,
Yeah.
because the only thing that we can do, so for me, the premise that works best for the way that I look at clients is when you show up to any moment. So right now, so if I was to say to you, Vera, right now, are you showing up 100% as the best version of you right now?
That's a good question. So, no, I had a few weeks of the not best version of myself because I wasn't living in my house, and it dysregulated my emotional system and regulation and everything. So that is a good point. So usually I go to my jiu-jitsu and I'm fine with where I am at and I'm not doing anything for any, but right now like all these things are popping up of my childhood of, like wanting to please my parents, please my boyfriend, and my boyfriend has never asked me, he's the teacher, the professor and the owner of the place and he's like, if you quit today, it's fine. Like it doesn't matter. So yeah, so I think all these things are popping up where because I'm a little dysregulated from like lack of sleep and lack of my routine and all like my mindfulness, my meditation, my like all the things that I do on the daily basis, then all these things are popping up, and then I'm like getting frustrated from not being the best. And I'm
Okay.
usually okay by not like by being where I am, and I'm like super grounded and like I don't even want to, I don't know, like I know what jujitsu like I go to the gym, I go to jiu-jitsu, and I do it for my mental health. I don't do it for a competition. I don't do it for proving
Yep.
myself or anything like that. Yeah. But right now,
Right.
no.
Okay. So no, interesting that you answered in that way. So on this podcast right
Mhm.
now, are you bringing 100% of yourself to this podcast interview?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So interesting. I asked you, are you bringing 100% of yourself, which is all anybody can do in their present moment?
Yeah.
Anybody who is successful is somebody who brings 100% of what they have to the moment that they're in right now. And you're
Mhm.
doing that right now. When I asked you the question, you went out to the future and you went out to the past.
Yes, yes. I thought we were
Yeah.
talking about the instant
Yep.
of
This is what everybody does though,
yes.
right? This is what everybody does though.
Mhm.
And this is where a lot of people will go, oh, hang on a minute. No, actually in life I'm blah, 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 blah. And they'll go into that. All you can do, so one of the things that I'm really big is it's no matter where you're at and what you're trying to create or what you're trying to achieve, is you need to bring 100% expression of yourself to that moment. And if you can put hand on heart and say, I have done that, then what you're doing is you're advancing yourself in that
Mhm.
moment every time. So that would be the first thing. And right now I'm going, but you're bringing 100%. I can feel it from you. You're bringing your joy and you can feel, and I'm sure your listeners can hear in the voice as well, the joy that you bring to this podcast, and the joy and the presence that you bring into this moment. You can feel it, right? So, and you can hear it in your voice, you can feel it in the energy from you. That's you fully expressing yourself. So in this moment, are you being the best? Yes, you are.
Yeah.
You are being the best right now.
Mhm.
Now, if you were to compare yourself to, say, jujitsu,
Yeah.
and you want to be the best at jujitsu, you also just said to me, you don't want to be a competitor. So you don't want to be the best from a competition perspective. So clarify to me, what does being the best at jujitsu mean for you?
So, um, I come from like abusive physically household, so
Yep,
I think that it's a growth for me to go into that and like not be afraid and do my best even if I'm not, this crazy attacking jiu-jitsu person
yep,
like everyone else is when they go there, and I'm so surprised. I'm like, wow, where did they get this from? uh,
yep.
so yeah, I think there is growth for me there into um overcoming that fear and that trauma and uh just being courageous, I guess.
Yeah. So what's the result that you want to create from your jujitsu? What's the end result that you want to create? Kind of like the artist who paints the painting, the end painting.
Mhm.
What's the result that you want to create from your jujitsu?
I guess like healing and self-confidence physically.
Okay. Can I make a suggestion? Can I help you
Yeah,
with this?
sure.
Okay, so healing in that would be the problem solving pathway. Okay, which would be a problem solving pathway, which means you'll oscillate. Okay, you'll get to a point, but it'll rise up again. Something will happen and it'll rise up again, so you'll need to take more action and so on and so forth. The creation that I'm getting potentially, I'm just going to throw this out there, and you can tell me if it resonates with you or not, is that you want to feel confident, secure, and safe in yourself, no matter what.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah. And so that's a creation. That's the end result that you want. You want to get to a place where no matter what circumstances or environment that you're in, that you feel confident in who you are, in what you're capable of doing, and I kind of get like the superhero type thing. I am you, that type of person. You want to have that, you want to create that feeling within yourself.
Yes.
That's a creation. That's an end result creation. Okay, because it's a 1% degree shift, right? In terms of where you started to where you want to be. That's the result or creation that you want to create, but you haven't been putting any attention on it. So you will feel the best, like when you can walk away and go, do you know what? I am like, the thing for me is when you create a result, or when you're creating a creation for the sake of it existing and no other reason, there are no problems. The problems don't exist. Because the painter's just painting for the sake of painting. They're not trying to fix the problem along the way. So if you shift your focus from, I no longer want to feel vulnerable. I no longer want to feel those feelings where I'm threatened. I no longer want to feel unsafe. So when you shift from that, what I call orientation on why you're doing what you're doing, to I want to be a superwoman. I want to feel like I'm Superwoman or Wonder Woman. Sorry. I want to feel like I am Wonder Woman inside, because that's who I am. And the confidence and the freedom I feel for who I am as a person, and the security and safety and everything else like that just becomes part of it. You're not thinking about trying to keep yourself safe anymore. You're just thinking about, I'm Wonder Woman. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's a slight shift in that. And so I would suggest that you probably have never thought about creating a result, creative result for your jiu-jitsu.
No,
And if you go to your jiu-jitsu sessions and you're like, do you know what? Today, you might feel tired, you might feel exhausted, you might have, had a whole heap of things coming on and you just don't have the energy, but you turn up at the session and you go, you know what? I am bringing 100% of what I have to this session today.
Yeah, I like that. That's like, okay, today I feel 20%, but if I give my 20%, then I gave my 100%.
You gave your 100%, exactly. You are fully expressing yourself in the moment. And that is living by universal law.
Right. But what if, for example, you ran out of money? Isn't that a problem?
That depends. When you say you run out of money, for what? In terms of what? Like,
In terms of you don't have money to pay all your bills this month.
yep, you don't have, okay, so yes, you have a problem, but you can think of it one or two ways. Okay, I've got to get money to fix that problem. How many people have you worked with, Vero, or people listening to this now who, you know what, get to the end of the month and they've got more month than they have money, right? They've got more days left than they've got money left. But it's not a one-off. I bet you throughout a year or 2 year time frame, it's probably happened to them 2, 3, maybe 4, maybe 10 times, right? It happens over and over again, because what they're doing is they're putting out, okay, here's my problem. I need to fix the problem, and that's all I'm going to do. They take action. Again, this is what I'm talking about. So they might go and go, you know what, I've got no money. I've got to do something about it. So, okay, I'm going to get really active. I'm going to ring people. I'm going to get some more jobs in. I'm going to pick up a third job. I'm going to, so they get really active, and all of a sudden they're bringing more money in. Well, do you know what? I don't have that problem anymore in terms of fixing my bills. So I don't need my third job anymore. I'm just going to go back to my second job. But the habits that got them into that problem in the first place are still there. And so before they know it, they don't have any money again. Because I look at it and go, even from a lifestyle perspective, you've got some people who, actually I was having a conversation with a client the other day. Now prior to COVID, they had a very good year in their business, and which landed them with a immense tax bill that they had to pay. Then COVID hit and they had to shut their business down. So for the past 4 years, they actually haven't done very well at all, and they don't have the money to fix the tax bill. Now, what they do have, though, is they have multi-million-dollar assets, but they're refusing to sell any of those assets to pay the tax bill because they're like, no, we're refusing, it's the tax man and I'm not giving him this and I haven't been able to do X, Y, Z. So they're really stuck in problem thinking. Now, some people, depending on, where they are, they're still multimillionaires that have a lot of money. There's other people who I know who are living in their cars, they don't have any money. The two scenarios are exactly the same in terms of we don't have any money. Right? It just looks at the level of consciousness as to the wealth that's behind them. But they're exactly the same. Now, here's the difference. Okay, I've got to go out and get a job, or I've got to sell my house, or I've got to do this to fix that problem. The problem doesn't go away. Right? The problem doesn't go away. The difference is you want to look at and go, well, what do you want? What do you want to create? So what I want to create a business, for example, let's say it's a coach, I haven't got enough clients, I haven't, so they're thinking, I haven't got enough clients, I haven't got enough money, I've got bills coming in, they're in the problem structure. What we want to do is we want to completely move them out of the problem structure and put them into the creative structure. And then the creative structure is, well, what do you want? Well, do you know what? I want a 6-figure business that's got regular income coming in, with clients that are raving fans and wait lists of people. Right, so that's not fixing the problem. That's actually creating something, and that and I'm actually thinking about a particular client of mine. So what do you want? And she said, right, she actually wanted a 7-figure business working 4 days a week. And I said, let's get really specific on this. A 7-figure business working 4 days a week with wait lists for my programs and raving fans as clients. I went, okay, great. I said, now how does that make you feel? She's like, oh my God, I'm so excited to make this happen. I'm like, okay, cool, right. So then what we do is I go, right, so what I want you to do now is go, so there's our creation. We've now painted the creation. What's your current reality in relation to the creation? Okay, so because what we want to do is we want to put her into a creative structure, and a structure only needs 2 points: where you want to go or what you want to create, and where you are now. And this is where a lot of people get really stuck, okay, because they want to be this is not about positive thinking. I don't want positive thinking here. I want the actual truth. Where are you now? And it might be, well, and for her, she was actually coming out of retirement, or not retirement. She'd been doing other things, and she actually she used to be a coach, and she's not one for a long time. And then she was coming back into her coaching and training business. So she was starting from scratch. I said, where are you at now? She goes, well, I have no clients. I have no product. I have nothing. I'm starting at 0. I went, right. Okay, great. So now we have a second point. Okay, so the current reality, or the truth of where you're at right now, is that you have 0. You have no clients, you have no products, and you have no programs, right? Where you want to be is a 7-figure business with raving fans working 4 days a week. We have 2 points. So once we have those 2 points in place, then what we do is we can set up what we call a structural tension, okay, between the two. Now, most people, when they think of tension, they go, I don't like tension. Tension's uncomfortable. Tension makes me feel bad. But here's the thing. And in fact, I can share with you, even yesterday, no, what's today? Thursday, Tuesday, I had a migraine through, but I had a deadline that I had to meet. And here's one of the things that the premises that I live by is, when it comes to creations, you can create whether you feel good or you feel bad. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So the emotions actually have nothing to do with it. And so often our emotions are what stop us from moving forward. Yeah. So the emotions, you can still take action if you're feeling bad, and you can still create. And so that's what you want to be thinking about. And I know for me, I had a deadline. The inspiration for me to want to create and get that deadline and make that happen and get to the completion of my creation, because it was actually the final step. It was the completion of what I wanted to do. So even with my migraine, I was like, do you know what? But I get to complete this. There was that thread of inspiration that was giving me the energy to keep going regardless of what was happening in my external circumstances. So often our appearances dictate how we feel and what actions we take. But if we're truly just focusing on our creation, then there will always be a gold vein or like a lighthouse light that we can follow to get us there, regardless of what's going on around us. And so for me, that's exactly what I did on that Tuesday. I was had a headache all day long, but I could see the completion of my creation coming to an end, and all I needed to do was finish this thing. I wasn't stopping for anybody. Right, I wasn't stopping. And for me, I was just, my husband's a healer. He was just saying, just follow the white light, hun. Just follow the white light. And for me, that's all it was. I was just taking that next step. What's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? So what we do is, so you have your point, and tell me, because I know I speak fast and I get excited about this stuff, and there's like so much information coming through. So if you need to slow me down, just tell me. So you have your current reality, you have your future reality, what you want. Okay. Then what I tell people is I tell them to get very present to this present moment. Okay. So you get into the present moment, and I imagine myself on a timeline or a stream of time, and there's infinite possibilities to the past, and there's infinite possibilities to the future. And on that stream of time, if you look out to the future, there is a future you who has already created your creation. Right? So again, these are just premises. So they're not beliefs, they're just premises that work for me. So that's what I pass on to everyone else. So in the present moment, and I'm thinking there's infinite possibilities that way on how to achieve my goal. There's infinite possibilities in the past of who I used to be. In the present moment, I can choose to be informed of what action steps to take next by my past me, or I can be informed by my future me that's already created the result. And I get to choose which one informs me. So what often happens is when we have those 2 points, like the 7-figure business, she's starting from zero, she's got nothing. And her first question, and this is what most people will ask, is that, but how? How do I get there? How do I do this? I don't know. So for me, when I hear that question, I don't know, I go, great, you're in the perfect place. Because you shouldn't know, because if you're creating something that's new, then it's never been done before for you. And so when you were talking about being the best, well, for being the best, for Vera's best, well, you've never done that before. And no one else has either, because no one else can be you.
Yeah.
So that unknown space, or that I don't know, fabulous. You're in the right space. So now we know you're in the creative structure, because you don't know what to do next. So all you can do is go into the present moment and then say, okay, there's a future me out there that's already created this. I'm going to ask it to tell me what my next action step is. And in that present moment, you just say, okay, just give me the next step. That's it. Just give me the next step.
Do you do that through meditation, or you just ask?
I just ask. So I meditate on I kind of laugh. When I met my husband, he would sometimes meditate for 8 hours a day. And I remember saying to him, well, if you think you're going to be doing that when we get married, that ain't happening. And I was never a meditator. I will meditate maybe 15 minutes at a time max. Yeah, I'm more, my meditation actually comes in my training. So because I train every day when I'm exercising, that's my form of I'm one with everything around me, and I actually get my biggest insights in. So I kind of say to people, look, however you need to do it. But for me, I actually sit down with my journal in the morning, or my planner in the morning. I look at, okay, what do I want to create today? This is my big creations. And I simply just ask and go, okay, I'm in the present moment. So what's my next step? I actually write down, what are the 3 most effective action steps that I need to take today that will move me forward? Sometimes they don't make sense. Sometimes they'll be, you need to go and have a coffee up the road at 10 o'clock today. I'm like, okay, I don't drink coffee, but okay, I'll go and have a cup of tea up the road, and I have learned that I will follow the intuition. So, for example, actually this happened to me the other day, where I went and had a cup of tea. I rang a girlfriend and said, look, I'm going for a cup of tea at 10 o'clock. You want to come meet me? And she did. And we met up with another person who knew somebody who had a resource that I was trying to figure out how to do. And they said, oh, I know the person for you. Right. And so what they did was they connected the resources together. So sometimes don't know what it is. And so this is why I don't necessarily always endorse the SMART way of setting goals. And I don't necessarily endorse putting time frames on it. I like to say, don't do a deadline, do a due date. Because when you
Mm,
think of deadline, what do you think of?
like pressure.
Pressure, right? Okay, it takes you out of the joyful state and you create so much easier when you're in a joyful state. But if you
Yeah.
think dead, you think of like life machine,
Mhm,
the flat line. You
mhm.
literally think dead. And so I kind of go, how about we change our language? Because language has energy on it. So
Yeah.
dead is like pressure, it's fear, it's oh my God, that's it for me. It's all over, and you do everything not to be there. So I change things from deadline to due date. Because
Mm,
if it's due, it takes the pressure off it. And yep, it's due by this date. And do you know what? If you don't meet that, if something happens and you don't meet that due date, then well, guess what? Just set another due date. So it
mm,
still puts it in a container for you, but it takes that pressure and fear and well, oh, I'm not going to meet it, and the anxiety. It takes all that pressure away from you. You still have the container that, look, I want to get it done by this date, but if it doesn't happen, then typically it's actually okay.
mm,
And I also live by the premise that, well, if that didn't happen, then there's always something bigger and better coming. Do you know what I
mhm.
mean? Sometimes you have to trust, you have to have that faith that that's going to happen. So what you do is, so I've got my present moment, you've got your future moment, you go into the present and you ask to be informed from your future self, because more often than not, most people are being informed by their past self. And
Right,
if you are being informed by your past self, you're just repeating the same cycles and patterns of behavior. And therefore, how can you get to new results if you're repeating your patterns from the past?
right. Very
Does that
interesting,
make
very
sense?
unique. Yeah. That makes total
I'm
sense.
actually throwing out lots today. There's lots of stuff going. It's interesting where these conversations are coming from. Kind of touching on lots and lots of different theories here.
I
So I
love
hope
it.
I'm
I
not
love it.
confusing everybody.
No, I think it was really clear. It was really clear. So, if you were to give our audience like one tool that took you or takes your clients out of like the surviving mode and what with talking about, the problem solving to thriving and the joy, what would it be?
One tool, okay. I would have said, well, actually, let's go with that last tool that I just shared with you. Then would be to recognize in every present moment, you're either being informed by your past or your future, and you get to choose which one. And
I
so
love
it's about being really present and making sure you choose, tip the future, the future you that's already, just in case someone needs clarification, choose the future you that's already got what you want.
I
That
love
would
that.
be so at any time. So, if you're faced with, you come up with a challenge or you come up with anything, is just to be present.
Yes.
That's the thing. First and foremost, to be present in the moment and then say, what's the most effective action step for me to take next? And I choose that information to come from the present me that's already got what I want. And if you take that that premise and put that in your back pocket, I tell you, your life will change immensely just from taking that one tip.
So powerful. Thank you. And thank you so much for being here and sharing all your tools and your expertise and your story and your amazing energy. And it was so much fun to have you. And
Oh, my pleasure.
of course, I'm gonna leave all her handles down here in the description and just like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be answering any questions that you have. I know I have a lot of questions, and I know I'm gonna start asking my future self for clarity in every situation now because that was so unique and I've never heard that before, and it makes so much sense. So, so much.
Fabulous. Well, if anyone has any questions, just reach out to me. I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much.